If you've been with us here at Marvelous Videos for a while, you probably know that we're big on horror. Naturally, we've covered the Silent Hill franchise and its monsters in pretty great detail on various occasions, but this time around, the writers at Marvelous Vids thought, why not come up with a list of our most favorite Silent Hill monsters? So yeah, we sat down, voted, and came up with this list, so sit tight as we journey into the mist of Silent Hill. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head is James Sunderland's living embodiment of guilt. Designers based him on the town's old executioners, giving him that trademark red rusted triangular helmet and a butcher-like outfit. He's built similarly to James, which means that they share a deeper connection. Masahiro Ito, the series artist, explains that Silent Hill once had official executioners. The memory of these people lingers in Pyramid Head's design. He carries an oversized great knife, which Ito intended to parallel the suicidal blade James finds with Angela. Originally, James was meant to obtain a different version of this blade in the labyrinth, but there wasn't time to add that extra detail. The final design shows Pyramid Head's weapon as a massive half of a symbolic pair of scissors. The helmet covers a fleshy tongue he can briefly extend through a small gap. That metal plating peels up, defying real-world logic and signaling these creatures exist in James' delusion. The stiff, angular shape is meant to convey pain and torment, reflecting James's internal suffering. In cutscenes, Pyramid Head violently assaults other monsters, especially Maria, James's recurring illusion of his late wife, in an almost sexual manner. This brutality is his way of punishing James, prodding him to face the crime he's buried in his mind. Eventually, once James confronts the truth, Pyramid Head's purpose ends and he kills himself. Later entries like Silent Hill Homecoming feature variations of the Boogeyman, referencing local myths used to scare children. These forms also appear as punishing creatures, but don't necessarily link to James's psyche. Ito emphasizes he never designed the face beneath the helmet. He wants players to imagine what lurks under there, though he personally has an idea. Nurse. Nurses appear in almost every Silent Hill entry, with the exception of Shattered Memories in the Room, which feature patients instead. They're one of the franchise's most iconic monsters alongside Pyramid Head. Typically found in the town's hospitals, Al Camilla for emergencies, Brookhaven for long-term care, these twisted monsters reflect each protagonist's fears about sickness, mortality, or madness. In the first Silent Hill, they're called puppet nurses. They wear older-fashioned cardigans and skirts, carry scalpels, and fall under Alessa Gillespie's control via parasites. A male version called puppet doctors also appears. These poor souls represent Alessa's memories of hospitalization and forced care. By Silent Hill 2, the creatures evolve into bubblehead nurses, clad in revealing outfits and their faces wrapped in fleshy masks. They wield steel pipes. The bulging twitchy heads can be read as referencing Mary's agony in the hospital and James Sunderland's repressed desires. This iteration merges adult fear of disease with sexual undertones. Each subsequent game tweaks the nurse design to match the lead character's psyche. For instance, they might dress more provocatively or behave more erratically if a character's guilt or lust is strong. They often carry medical tools, another reflection of hospital trauma. Usually female, the nurses hobble or jerk in unnatural ways, showcasing their grotesque nature. While their function is the same, to represent the anxieties tied to sickness, death, or sexual guilt, they're never simple placeholders. They link to the overarching theme of medical distress in Silent Hill. Twin Victim. Twin Victim appears in Silent Hill 4 The Room as conjoined ghostly infants wearing a ragged smock and scarf. They rest on oversized adult-like arms which substitute for legs. These arms allow them to stand and lunge. Their faces remain closed in an eerie, sleeping expression until Harry Townshend gets too close. They represent two of Walter Sullivan's murder victims, Billy and Miriam Locane, who were children. Most of Walter's victims appear as ghosts, but these twins materialize as a single monster instead. They haunt a variety of areas in the game, quietly pointing at Henry and whispering, "Receiver up." If Henry keeps his distance, they seem indifferent, but if he attacks them or ventures too close, they charge. They strike by swinging their long arms or pouncing with surprising force. Their wide reach catches unsuspecting players off guard. After being knocked down, they writhe on the ground like young kids throwing a tantrum, letting out sorrowful sobs. It's vital to stomp them immediately to prevent a counterattack. Using melee weapons like the steel pipe or rusty axe works well if you're quick. Firearms are safer, but you risk letting them scurry away to regroup. On the surface, Twin Victims is simply a disturbing creature. Symbolically, they're Walter's memory of the Locane twins, fused into one pitiful abomination. Their childlike design underscores the innocence lost, while the adult arms show how violently their fate was forced upon them. They also reflect Walter's fractured psyche, turning the murdered twins into a single twisted entity. The repeated appearance of Twin Victim may stem from Walter's obsessive guilt or the unnatural power fueling his nightmares. Despite being only 2 victims in the real world, they recur as these monstrous illusions, representing how strongly their tragic story resonates in his twisted otherworld. Valtiel. Valtiel is seen throughout Silent Hill 3 and briefly in the movie Silent Hill Revelation. Despite his demonic look, he's revered as an angel or attendant of God in the town's cult. His name combines the French word valet, meaning servant, and the Semitic suffix el, commonly seen in angelic names. He looks humanoid, but with a featureless face stitched shut, perpetually jittering. Robes reminiscent of a butcher's apron and gloves complete his appearance. On his shoulders, he bears the seal of Metatron, another creature some interpret as God's agent. Valtiel doesn't attack Heather Mason. Instead, he lurks in the background, turning valves or quietly observing. Each time an otherworld shift occurs, you might spot him methodically cranking a valve as if he's the one flipping reality like a dial. If Heather dies, there's a random chance you'll see Valtiel dragging her corpse away to a halo of the sun symbol. He doesn't do it to save her, he's more concerned about the god gestating within Heather's body. If Heather perishes too soon, the deity might not emerge. Within the Order's lore, worshippers established a Valtiel sect, led by Jimmy Stone, to honor him and draw closer to God. Pyramid Head's design also echoes Valtiel's ceremonial garb, suggesting that these punishing or guiding monsters exist on some hierarchical level in Silent Hill's twisted spirituality. Mannequin. Mannequins in Silent Hill 2 reflect James Sunderland's repressed desires. They resemble 2 sets of legs joined at a torso, lacking a head or upper body. This incomplete form parallels James's fragmented memory of his wife Mary and the guilt he tries to bury. Each mannequin sports leg braces reminiscent of Mary's medical orthosis, hinting at her illness and James's hospital anxieties. They usually stand motionless until the player steps near. Then, they lunge or twitch with horrific intensity. Pyramid Head is frequently seen assaulting or punishing them, signifying James's mind trying to repress or erase these haunting visions. Silent Hill's creative team intentionally designed that scene to feel sexual, though it's not literal intercourse, rather a psychological expression of James's shame and confusion. Mannequins link to the broader notion of sexual frustration. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theories influenced the game's designers, who wanted to convey an undercurrent of erotic fear. The mannequin's incomplete body blurs the line between disturbing object and ephemeral human shape. That aspect also underscores James's internal refusal to fully acknowledge Mary's identity or the reality of her suffering. In combat, they're not the toughest foes, but their unpredictable movements can startle unwary players. They often represent James's natural urges and regrets, a manifestation of the tensions swirling in his mind. The conjoined legs are a stark symbol of how his guilt has twisted normal human forms into reminders of what he's lost. By confronting and, in a sense, destroying mannequins, James grapples with his own desires and the memory of his wife's illness. Their repeated executions by Pyramid Head reflect James punishing himself at every turn. Abstract Daddy. Abstract Daddy appears in Silent Hill 2, reflecting Angela Orozco's traumatic past of sexual abuse and James Sunderland's sadness over his wife's illness. It first appears in the Labyrinth as a boss, then reappears in weaker form at the Lakeview Hotel. The creature looks like 2 people locked together in a sexual position atop a bed frame covered by fleshy skin. For Angela, it's a direct echo of her father's abuse. For James, that bed frame recalls Mary's hospital bed, merging the 2 nightmares. Masahiro Ito, the monster's designer, points out that Angela doesn't see the same exact creature James does. We as players only witness James's interpretation, a horrifying shape that's part bed, part-fused bodies. The abstract daddy's design emphasizes vulnerability and violation. One portion of the form represents Angela, while the other suggests her abuser. This is a visual representation of the horror she endured, and it underscores her anger, guilt, and shame. James simply sees it as a horrific monstrosity, tied to his memories of Mary's illness and perhaps a feeling of helplessness. When encountered in the labyrinth, its movements and the tight surroundings add to the claustrophobic dread. The Lakeview Hotel version is less powerful but still unnerving. The game implies these repeated appearances stem from both Angela and James's unresolved trauma intersecting. Ito believes Angela's own perspective would be far more disturbing if it were shown directly. It remains ambiguous, leaving the door open for personal interpretation. Eileen Head. Eileen Head appears in Silent Hill 4, The Room, and can be found in a random room in the Otherworld version of St. Jerome's Hospital. It's basically a giant version of Eileen Galvin's head, with diseased-looking skin, bloodshot eyes, and an eerie habit of following Henry's movement around the room. Strangely, it ignores Eileen if she's present, suggesting she doesn't see it at all. When you open the door, the camera angles shift so you can't see the entire space. If you hear heavy breathing, you're likely in the room with Eileen Head. The best strategy is to walk back out without wandering deeper. The head doesn't attack, but its mere existence in the game and incessant moans can rattle players. Symbolically, people propose it represents multiple themes. One theory is that it reflects Walter Sullivan's twisted perspective. Eileen survived his ritual, so maybe this is his warped vision of her. Another theory says it's about Henry's guilt for spying on Eileen through the peephole in his apartment. Now he's the one being leered at by an enormous version of her face. There's also speculation linking her heavy breathing to sexual undertones or a hospital breathing tube. Some see it as Henry's concern about Eileen's well-being. He repeatedly checks on her, anxious she might die. Encountering a hideously deformed version of her face might be his deepest fear made flesh. Alternatively, it could be a manifestation of Eileen's own trauma. The head isn't visible to her, but it's still her negative emotions projected into the environment. Regardless of which interpretation you prefer, Eileen Head remains one of Silent Hill 4's creepiest moments, a prime example of the franchise's knack for turning simple ideas, like a friend's face, into a haunting confrontation with fear and mortality. Slurper. Slurpers first appear in Silent Hill 3 after Brookhaven Hospital transforms into the Otherworld. They look like humanoid monsters wearing minimal gear with elongated snout-like mouths reminiscent of an anteater's muzzle. They scuttle on all fours, using club-like forelimbs to ambush their prey. Their loud, ear-piercing screeches echo down hallways, forewarning their approach. These creatures thrive in packs, bursting from crawl spaces and vents to catch Heather Mason off guard. They can knock her down by sliding into her or grabbing her legs, then stomp or bite until she manages to break free. Slurpers are short-sighted but highly sensitive to sound. Running footsteps easily alert them. Turning off Heather's flashlight and moving slowly helps avoid detection. They're vulnerable to firearms, especially if you attach a silencer. Otherwise, gunfire may draw others close. If you prefer melee, you must strike fast and relentlessly. Any pause lets Slurpers counterattack. They sometimes feign death, so it's wise to keep your distance or confirm the kill before moving on. Beef jerky can distract them momentarily, reflecting their scavenger-like nature. Thematically, Silent Hill 3 often deals with pregnancy, femininity, and forced motherhood. Some fans believe the Slurpers might represent a fear of sexual assault or intrusion, particularly given their tendency to pin Heather down. Others see them as illusions of medical procedures or abortion references, given their name Slurper and that elongated tube. Another possibility is that they symbolize Heather's anxiety about children or motherhood, with the Slurper's crawling posture and hidden faces. No official source confirms one specific meaning, so the Slurper's true symbolism remains open to interpretation, but there's no denying it's an enemy, playing on primal fears of being ambushed and overwhelmed in the dark. Romper. Romper is a four-legged beast found in the original Silent Hill. Alessa Gillespie's psychic pain and fear of adults conjured up these monsters, among others. When her nightmares transformed the town, Harry Mason encounters Rompers while exploring central Silent Hill in the resort area. They look vaguely ape-like, leaning forward on powerful legs and lunging with sudden leaps. A belt-like object around their neck and metallic staples in place of eyes add to their grotesque appearance. Tendrils extend from their mouths, furthering the sense of something half human and half feral. Rompers typically rush in and slam into Harry's torso, knocking him down. They rely on body blows and pounces to overpower victims. If Harry falls, they'll keep mauling him until he escapes. Because they're quick and can be numerous in open areas, it's wise to either outrun them or use firearms before they close in. Their unpredictable leaps and aggressive nature reflect Alessa's dread towards the adults who hurt or failed her. Symbolically, these creatures emphasize how Alessa's mind views grown-ups: threatening, unstoppable, and physically overbearing. The belt around their neck might suggest restraint or discipline turned savage in Alessa's twisted reality. With each kill, the Romper reaffirms how violent the town's illusions can become once tapped by Alessa's powers. When Alessa finally passes away and reincarnates, the nightmarish illusions collapse, making the Rompers vanish with them. In the game's context, they're a blunt reminder that Silent Hill shapes personal fears into terrifying reality. Amnion! Amnion is the final boss of Silent Hill Homecoming, symbolizing Alex Shepard's guilt over accidentally causing his younger brother Joshua's death. During a twisted ritual in the Otherworld, Alex remembers their fatal fight for a family ring at Toluca Lake. Joshua drowned, ruining the family's sacrificial pact with the cult. Amnion abruptly appears from the ceiling in a terrifying spider-like shape. Her pale, bloated torso is fused to 4 mechanical legs. Her abdomen is distended, and she has 3 pairs of unnerving breasts. A bizarre black hose juts from her mouth to her crotch, resembling an umbilical cord. She also extends her head, spewing toxic bile that can knock Alex off his feet. If he gets too close, she leaps and slams the ground to send him flying. When Alex inflicts enough damage, Amnion shifts into a second phase. She stands upright, using her front legs as arms with attacks that grow faster and more vicious. She may smash down both limbs, leaving them stuck in the floor for a moment, an ideal time for Alex to strike. She can also shoot her acidic fluid skyward, causing it to rain down around her. If Alex lingers under her, she may grab him and hurl him aside. Defeating Amnion involves careful dodging and attacking between her lunges. Ranged weapons help soften her up, but close combat becomes essential in her second stage. Once she collapses, Alex slices open her bulging belly and sees Joshua's body. Finally accepting that he caused his brother's death, Alex places the family ring and flashlight with Joshua before leaving. Amnion's appearance is related to water, drowning, and themes of childbirth, echoing Joshua's watery end and Alex's guilt. The name Amnion references the amniotic sac, while her decaying, waterlogged body parallels Joshua's final moments beneath Toluca Lake. Scarlet. Scarlet is the second boss in Silent Hill Homecoming. She represents Dr. Martin Fitch's guilt for dismembering his beloved daughter to fulfill a sacrificial pact. Her form appears after Alex returns Scarlet's doll to Dr. Fitch, triggering a violent transformation in a bloody pool. Scarlet's first phase is a tall, porcelain-like doll. Her segmented armor can be shattered to reveal a pink, fleshy interior. She hisses and shrieks, often slashing with her long arms. She moves stiffly at first, giving Alex opportunities to break her protective shell. A heavy melee weapon, like an axe or crowbar, is effective for cracking her armor. Once her legs are exposed, she may collapse, allowing Alex to keep hitting her until every section of porcelain breaks. Once fully unarmored, Scarlet transitions into a spider-like second phase. She scuttles on all fours at an alarming speed, sometimes climbing walls and dropping onto Alex. Her attacks become quicker and more lethal, including powerful spins and leaps that can catch players off guard. A sustained barrage with the combat knife can be surprisingly effective, provided Alex times his strikes and dodges well. She can also attempt to grab, and if Alex fails the button prompts, Scarlet rips his throat out or decapitates him. Scarlet's final defeat sees her dissolve in a sea of blood, referencing her own brutal death at her father's hands. Doll imagery abounds in her fight, hinting at her youth, innocence, and Dr. Fitch's obsession with perfecting her. The porcelain shell illustrates how he viewed his daughter as fragile and precious, but also how he ultimately shattered her. Grey Child. Grey children, or demon children, appear in the original Silent Hill as child-sized fiends wielding knives. They're exclusive to the North American release. Other regions replaced them with mumblers because censors deemed them too similar to real kids. Harry Mason first encounters them in a horrifying alleyway dream sequence. violence. After drifting into the other world, he's overwhelmed by a swarm of these pale, shrieking creatures. Later, they show up in Midwich Elementary School, attacking in groups. They resemble short, hunched figures with slit-like eyes and toothy mouths, brandishing long knives. They giggle cruelly when they grab Harry's legs, pinning him while others slash. As an enemy, Grey Children are aggressive in numbers. Harry can fight back with firearms or carefully use melee weapons, but it's risky if more than one is present. If pinned, rapid button presses free him faster. A steady retreat while firing is often the safest approach. Their symbolism isn't explicitly clarified in official material, but many believe they represent Alessa Gillespie's painful childhood memories. Alessa was bullied and singled out by classmates, so the town warps those bullies into these malevolent figures. The demonic laughter hints at the cruelty she experienced, while their clingy attacks parallel how relentless harassment can feel. They also carry knives, possibly reflecting the threat Alessa sensed from peers who ostracized her. In the Silent Hill film adaptation, the Grey Children transform the protagonist's world into a flaming nightmare, shrieking with childlike terror. Unlike other creatures, they aren't obviously sexual or medical in theme, focusing instead on raw childhood fear.
Stay back!
Closer! Closers show up early in Silent Hill 3 as tall, intimidating monsters with enormous thick arms that fill most of their torsos. Their bandaged limbs have hidden bone-like blades that thrust out when they strike. They're first introduced when Heather Mason stumbles across one feasting on a corpse in a clothing store. They move slowly but can block narrow passages with their massive frames, forcing Heather to engage. When attacked, they swing those bulky arms in wide arcs or jab forward with hidden spikes. It's not uncommon for them to trap Heather in a corner. Although clumsy, closers inflict heavy damage, so caution is crucial. Using firearms at a safe distance or circling around with well-timed melee strikes can help. Later in the game, they become more aggressive and faster, decorated with writhing black globs on their skin. The name Closer implies they close off Heather's route, matching their role as large blocking obstacles. Artwork from the series' main monster designer, Masahiro Ito, reveals that the Closer's design partly echoes the Mandarin monster from Silent Hill 2, highlighting how certain features may recur in the town's nightmares. Narratively, Silent Hill 3 revolves around the Order's goal of birthing a god through Heather. Many of its monsters, including the Closer, align with themes of confinement, female trauma, and forced change. Their huge swaddled arms may also suggest some link to imprisonment or restraint, possibly referencing Heather's sense of feeling trapped by forces beyond her control. Because they appear consistently, Closers serve as a visual reminder of the horrors that stand in Heather's path. Their lumbering approach can be unnerving in tight hallways or cramped rooms, creating tension as you scramble to dodge. Prisoner Juggernaut. The Prisoner Juggernaut appears late in Silent Hill Downpour within Overlook Penitentiary. This towering, muscular creature resembles its smaller counterpart, the Prisoner Minion, but with massive strength and barbed wire coiling around its arms and torso. Its unnerving grin appears pinned in place by twisted strands of wire, creating deep grooves in its skin. When Murphy Pendleton first sees a Juggernaut, it tears off a metal gate with ease. These brutes also reach through prison bars to grab Murphy as he passes. Sometimes a Juggernaut leads minions around on hooks. In direct combat, it performs a devastating charge to close distance, then wails on Murphy with heavy punches. Surviving a Juggernaut attack requires careful timing. Dodge its rush, then land a few strikes or bullets while it recovers. Blocking or counterattacking is essential, but firearms are more reliable if you have enough ammo. Prolonged melee exchanges can be dangerous because of its raw power and resilience. Symbolically, this creature may reflect Murphy's fear of other inmates or his own brutality. After all, he's in prison for attacking someone, and the Juggernaut's sheer aggression might echo his guilt. Its tattoos further suggest an ex-con background, while the barbed wire hints at unending punishment, maybe representing Murphy's sense of entrapment. Some theorize that the Juggernaut is the darker side of prison life, deals for protection, power imbalances, and terrifying displays of violence. One memorable scene features a Juggernaut holding two minions on leashes.
Well, let's go and see Mother.
Ghost! In Silent Hill 4, The Room, ghosts are restless spirits of Walter Sullivan's murder victims. Unlike typical monsters, these apparitions float or glide towards Henry Townshend, unleashing an unrelenting terror that drains health just by proximity. They can't be killed in a traditional sense, only pinned temporarily with special items like the Sword of Obedience. Most remain wordless or moaning, but Victim 11, Walter himself, is far more dangerous. Walter's ghostly form is stained with blood across his face. He laughs eerily, wields multiple weapons, and fires a gun at Henry. He can also show up with a pipe or a chainsaw, delivering high damage. Walter is faster to recover than other ghosts, meaning you get little breathing room after knocking him down. Running in a zigzag helps evade bullets, while attacking only works as a stall. He remains a constant threat, further emphasizing that your typical strategies won't guarantee safety. Walter's presence has deeper significance. He's the prime mover behind the game's nightmare worlds, performing a twisted ritual to resurrect his mother by sacrificing 21 victims. While standard ghosts represent random victims, Walter embodies the driving force of the entire ordeal. His haunting reveals Henry's helplessness. No matter how many times you drop him, he gets back up. Symbolically, these ghosts highlight the unstoppable nature of past traumas. For Walter, it's his self-imposed mission. For Henry, it's the dread that refuses to die. Every ghost, including Walter, is an echo of old sins or unending pain. The user can attempt to exorcise them with special methods, but often that's only temporary. Lying Figure. Lying figures are the first enemies James Sunderland meets in Silent Hill 2. Each stands upright, yet appears wrapped in a suffocating hospital-like straitjacket of flesh. They stumble or twitch on two legs, their chests heaving as though in agony. Their heads and arms are completely encased, leaving them to thrash as if they're helplessly trapped. Masahiro Ito, the monster designer, drew inspiration from BDSM themes and the wriggling movements of someone wearing a hoodie. The lying figure's body bag-like torso suggests Mary's hospital bed and her final months of suffering. James's guilt and memories of Mary's terminal illness shape these creatures into living metaphors for pain and confinement. Their main attack involves spewing a corrosive liquid from a slit in their chest region, hitting James from mid-range. At close quarters, they may also lunge and slam into it. The easiest way to handle them is with a firearm. Fire a few shots and they back off. The radio's static warns of their approach, giving you a second or two to prepare. Their name alludes to Mary lying in bed, dying of disease, as well as a lie James tells himself about her fate. In advanced areas like Toluca Prison or the Labyrinth, they show up more frequently, driving home James's spiraling guilt. Their frail shape, combined with contorted flesh, feels pitiful yet hostile. They can be encountered practically anywhere. Dark alleys, echoing corridors, or around corners, each time reigniting James's dread. Schism. The Schism is a lanky, pale humanoid in Silent Hill Homecoming. Its most striking feature is a pendulum-like head split down the middle, almost like a giant blade. When the creature's mouth opens, a thin tongue flails around. Its right arm is double-jointed and bends backwards, while the left arm is relatively normal. A metal plate covers its crotch, leaving no clear gender. Alex Shepard first runs into these creatures in the Shepherd's Glen police station. They move fast and deliver devastating blows, including a lethal overhead slash that can decapitate Alex if he fails a QuickTime prompt. Staying silent and switching off the flashlight helps evade them, as they seem to be blind. Guns are safer for dispatching them, but players who prefer melee can use a quick weapon like the steel pipe or combat knife. The key is dodging from the side or back and never letting them get a clean hit. On a deeper level, some fans believe that the Schism represents duality in Alex's mind. He's torn between guilt and denial over Joshua's death. The vertical split suggests something fundamentally fractured, possibly referencing the trauma or the rift in his family. The name Schism can also hint at the broken pact between the town's founders and the Order, or a psychological split reminiscent of schizophrenia. Achievements tied to killing schisms even reference the concept of a split personality. The Butcher. The Butcher appears in Silent Hill Origins and is akin to Pyramid Head in Silent Hill 2. Travis Grady encounters this blood-soaked executioner multiple times. Clad in a butcher's apron and splattered with gore, he wears metal plates over half his face, leaving the other side disturbingly vacant. His main weapon is the Great Cleaver, an oversized blade with which he slaughters monsters around town. Early on, Travis spots the Butcher in the back of a slaughterhouse. The creature calmly guts a faceless nurse with surgical precision, then drags the corpse away. Later sightings occur in the lumberyard and Riverside Motel. Peering through a peephole, Travis sees him inside room 503 standing next to a bed. Eventually, they confront each other head-on in the motel kitchen where the butcher is busily dismembering a two-back. He attacks Travis with a frightening calm that shifts into feral rage when striking. The small battle arena leaves little room to dodge, so firearms or thrown items help create distance. Even then, the butcher can soak up damage and quickly redirect his assault, making this fight tense and punishing. Symbolically, the butcher may reflect Travis's hidden anger or the cult's cruelty. Some note that he kills other monsters like a twisted enforcer of sacrifice, echoing the Order's brutal practices. Others see him as Travis's dark side, building on the notion of a split personality. In the bad ending, Travis morphs into the butcher, which strengthens the connection between them. Where Pyramid Head seemed to shame or punish James, the butcher's violence is more detached. He slays indiscriminately. So that's our list of our favorite Silent Hill monsters. If you've got any suggestions or replacements, feel free to let us know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.